He's the reigning NWA World Heavyweight Champion and one of the few men to compete in the four biggest pro wrestling promotions of the last few decades. He's teaming up with Sabu this Monday at TNA Sacrifice to take on Jeff Jarrett and Rhino in what should be an epic tag team match. He is Raven. Raven, thank you so much for joining me today.
Not a problem, not a problem.
Congratulations on your NWA World Heavyweight Championship win back at Slammiversary. Does it feel good to be champ?
I love it. I mean, I told this to another radio show I did. It's a vindication. Usually when you become world champion, the other belts don't mean as much because a lot of them just get shuffled from people to people, person to person, with no regard to whether it's going to mean anything. Whereas world titles, they shouldn't be traded around. I mean, the world title shouldn't be, not that many people should be able to say they're world champion because, I mean, it's the highest honor and prestige you can get in this business. And in TNA, Ken Shamrock had it, Ron Killings, Jeff Jarrett, AJ, and me. Over 3 years, which in the old days that would have been a lot, but for the modern era, that's not very many. And I think it's vindication that the company's saying, look, we think you're as good as you're the best in the company, or one of the two or three best in the company, and we want to build the company around you for the time being, or you're going to be our flagship. And it's just a vindication of your talent, because we're all a bunch of sensitive artists. We always want to be vindicated for our work. We want people to recognize us, and we need some level of, as good as you always think you are, you're never really sure how good you are, and that's, and it's funny, like, you have all these insiders putting over all these guys at 4-star matches, but they can't draw any money, so that's not how you become the best at what you do. The best at what you do in wrestling is the best at drawing money. That's why Hogan was the best for years. He was the money maker, and this is the company saying, look, we think of you as promos, interviews, matches, character, personality, everything across the board. You're one of the best, and it's nice to be respected for that.
With that in mind, do you consider it the pinnacle of your career so far?
One of them, definitely one of the highlights. I mean, obviously the first time winning the world title was for ECW, was a huge thing for me. It's funny. My goals continue to evolve. I mean, when I first won the Pacific Northwest heavyweight title, that was a pretty big deal, And then, although ironically, all these things, because I'm so jaded and cynical, because when I got in this business, I was taught not to be a mark for the business. So by the same token, all these things that I've won, all these accolades, on some level, they don't, what's the word? As much as they mean to me, in many ways, they're just, it's just ancillary to the work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But winning the Pacific Northwest title, then winning, what came next? I don't remember. Getting my first break on WCW, Scotty Flamingo, then going to the WWF, then being made associate producer of Raw. Then I've had so many career highlights, but this would definitely be one of the top 3 or 4 things. And the only reason I don't say top 2 is because obviously off the top of my head it's top 2 with winning the ECW title. I would say those 2 and probably. I don't have to think about it, but I put them in the top 5 because there's other stuff as well that meant a lot to me, although I can't recall at the time. So right now, one of my favorite things I ever did was when TBS paid me, when WCW paid me $6 to sit in the front row and get drunk every night.
Is it a stressful time to be the world champ?
No, I don't get stressed. No, it's probably the least stressful time because we're in between TV deals. So, to be honest, it's probably the exact opposite, the antithesis. Because I'm hoping I'm the world champion for the next 10 years, but, I'm going to be a realist and say, of course I'm not going to be. But right now, our buy rates are only going to be so much because there's no TV backing them. So there's really no pressure because I could have the world's worst buy rates and still they're like, well, there's no TV. So it's not a reflection. But, yeah, so the only way I can answer it is I don't think there's any pressure right now. I think the pressure will start once we go on Spike.
You spoke earlier about your run in WCW. How bad was WCW for you to walk away from a six-figure income?
It wasn't. It wasn't hard at all, actually, because I wasn't happy. I've never done this for money, although I love the money. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's one of the greatest gigs. Although, I mean, if you really think about it, we get paid 10, 15% of the gross, and all pro athletes, most pro athletes get paid 50 to 75% of the gross. So, you know, it's a huge disparity between all other pro athletes, what they make and what we make. And but nonetheless, this beats the hell out of working at McDonald's. That being said, I've never done it for the money. I've done it for the love of the game. And so when I walked out because I wasn't happy. You know, if I couldn't play the game I wanted to play, then why? You know, that's not why I got into business. So that's why I've left every company I've left. So I wasn't happy doing what they had me doing, and you know, I wasn't being used. The reason I left the WWF was they had me as a producer and not even the first time, and they wouldn't even let me on the air. So I mean, you know, and then that was ridiculous. I mean, I got to be a wrestler, not a producer. Yeah, WWF they made me a producer, and they said, you know, we don't want you as a wrestler, which I couldn't believe, and then they're like, we want you as a producer, and I'm like, and then they took me off air. I was like, you know what, forget it. I didn't get this. That's why I quit there. And WCW, I quit. But it's kind of funny. Quitting there was, I never should have even been in the position to quit, because from the top of the company, the top guys started, you know, talking about how crappy the product was, and it trickled down. So everybody started talking about it. So I would bury the company, and you can't let. I mean, Vince McMahon never would have tolerated anybody burying his company, and he shouldn't have. And Bischoff, I like Bischoff a lot, by the way, but Bischoff should have cut it off right at the top and said, look, you know, whoever was burying the company said, look, listen, you don't do that. You're either going to be suspended or fined, but you can't talk shit about the company you work for. And then it never would have got to the point where I would have quit, you know, because I never would have been, you know, burying the company publicly. That being said, I had no problem leaving because I couldn't wait to get back to ECW at that point. And except I didn't know Paulie was so freaking burned out that he had nothing left in the tank. Coupled with the fact that the network we went to had no interest in pushing us, and that was just as big a, you know, that sucked just as bad, but the difference was I didn't have to work as much.
Whereabouts have you been happiest?
ECW the first time, and TNA now. Portland, Oregon was great. What else? Global was a blast. It was only 1 day a week. But I would say Portland, ECW the first time, and TNA now. I love TNA now. It's great. I mean, I work 3 days a month, get paid an ass load of money. I get to do the majority of things I want to do. I mean, you know, they respect me enough that they always come to me and say, this is what we're going to do. How would you like to, you know, make it better? What can you do to help? I mean, you know, they keep me in a good position. I don't want to be the booker ever. You know, as creative as I am, it's not something I aspire to, because I don't want to be responsible for that. I like having no responsibility, except I like my responsibility in being performing, and that's it. Which is why I'll never own a company. People go, why don't you buy a bar or buy a business, you know, or, you know, with your money and to invest that way. I'm like, I don't want to own something because then I have to be responsible for it. I'd much rather be a performer and they go, look, this is what we need done, go out and do it. And that's what I want to do.
How does TNA stack up in terms of leadership and morale backstage?
Morale's good. Morale's really good right now, especially since we got on Spike, but it was good before that. Leadership, I think Demore's doing a great job, you know. I think people love Dixie. I mean, how can you not love Dixie? If you know her, I mean, she's just the sweetest, nicest lady. Her parents are just, you know, phenomenal. I mean, and I think that's a big difference, because the company is owned and ran by people that are genuinely caring people, and as opposed to a lot of other places I've been. So, I mean, I think I nothing but thumbs up.
You're noted as having a very high IQ. You studied criminology at Delaware, so that begs the question, what's your biggest strength in the industry, brains or brawn?
Oh, obviously it's my brains and my creativity. I mean, I was never a great athlete in high school. I mean, I rode the bench in football. Baseball, I was a decent player, but you know, nothing special. Wrestling, I was a mid-carder. I mean, but two factors. One is I was a late bloomer, so I got better as I got older. But even then, I would have been a great athlete. But I'm intelligent. But wrestling is not about athletics. As much as athleticism is an important aspect of it, you could be a complete spaz and be a huge money draw. And that takes brains and creativity to be able to figure out what the people want and how to give it to them, how to package it and give it to them in a way that they're going to pay money to see you. And, you know, if you look at all the top guys, they're all exceptionally smart, you know. Nash, Hogan, Shawn Michaels, you know, whoever. They're all really bright guys. You got to be really bright to be a main eventer here, because this is about, it's, you know, it's like selling. You know, even if you're a complete unathletic person, you can watch somebody sell. You can watch people, and you can figure out how they're doing it that makes it effective, and you can teach yourself to do it. Because, you know, it's kind of funny. Like, I could drop a fly ball, but I'll look really athletic running and catching it because I know how to look athletic. My skills may not be the same as somebody like, say, you know, AJ Styles, you know, but I may drop, you know, if we play baseball, I may drop, you know, a percentage of fly balls, except that I'm not going to look like an athletic drop. I'm not going to look like a spaz, because I know how to take what I watch and figure out the mechanics of it and then apply it to myself, you know. So I don't have to, so I can overcome the fact that my athleticism is limited, at least in appearance, but, you know, not necessarily in the actual action.
How was Hardcore Homecoming?
And that was fun, but it was just too hot. Just so hot. I mean, and, you know, the locker rooms, there was no room. I mean, honestly, it wasn't, that was for the fans. It wasn't as cool as it could have been backstage. I mean, and not that everybody wasn't cool. I don't mean it that way. I just meant there was so little room and so much going on that you couldn't really have the homecoming for the boys. You know what I mean? Like, that was completely for the fans. Whereas, you know, a lot of times the reunions all, you know, is as much about the people, the boys as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But I'd seen most of those guys over the years anyway, so, you know, so it wasn't like I hadn't seen them in forever. But the locker room was too small. It was too hot. I mean, there was so much crap going on. Not crap, but there was so much stuff going on. Crap's the wrong word. So much stuff going on that, you know, and I thought Shane did a great job running the show. But there was just so much going on that it wasn't like a normal atmosphere would have been, where we're just, hey, oh, it's great to see everybody, let's hang out and bullshit, you know what I mean, and talk for an hour, a couple hours, you know what I mean? It wasn't the time, the space, and the heat was just awful. You know, don't get me wrong, in front of the people it was great, but, you know, and then, I don't know, and part of the problem that sucked for me as well was I had to turn myself heel, which I love being a heel, and I wanted to be a heel, and I prefer to be a heel, but I hated having to heel on those fans. Well, actually, part of me hated having to, and part of me loved it, because if you can turn the smart fans, it just means you're really good at your job. So I did my job really well. But part of me was like, you know, they came here to celebrate this thing, and, you know, and I was one of the, you know, the main institutions. And, you know, I just felt, you know, there's part of me that's like, oh, this kind of bites, you know, I gotta crap on the people, you know, so I can be a heel and Sammy can be a babyface so we can get the most out of the match.
Did you catch One Night Stand?
No, I had no interest. I don't, you know, it's funny, I love performing more than ever, but somewhere when wrestling started getting bad, I just lost all interest in watching it. You know, when I was in the WWF, I mean, I was one of those guys who would sit in front of the monitor, catch every match, and then I would tape the shows in case I missed matches, whatever I missed. You know, and I would watch, you know, I would tape, you know, when Raw and Nitro going on, whichever one I watched, I would tape the other, you know, whichever one, I mean, when I was at Raw, when I was at Nitro, I would tape Raw. And, you know, but when wrestling got bad, I lost interest in watching it. But I love performing more than ever.
What do you think it's going to take to get wrestling back to the glory years, I guess, of the late 90s?
I think, you know what would help?
What's that?
One, well, let me think if I wanted to say this or not. I have a couple different opinions. Honestly, I mean, I think our company, I think we can absolutely do it. I think our company has tons of potential to do it. I don't mean that way. You're probably thinking of what you're thinking. I'm talking about is something, but it's something probably most of them even considered. But you know, if we got like, let's say a Mick Foley, you know, we took that one key guy and brought him into our company, and there's only a few guys you could do it with. Instead of it being a long war to drag it out to make it a competitive fight. I think you find the one right guy, you pay him enough money, and he's gonna be enough to get you in the game instantly, as opposed to fighting to get into the game. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and I hate to put that on Mick, because I talked with Mick about it. I hate to put him in the spot, but you know, there's only a few guys with that much name power, that much leverage, that over, that if they jump to our company, people go, holy crap, I got to watch this show. And, you know, with that kind of juice, you know, like a Rock or an Austin or a Mick Foley, and that would give us that jump to get from point A to point D much faster. You know, otherwise we're going to have to go from A to B to C to D, which I absolutely think we will. But that's a shortcut.
TNA has created a lot of new young stars. Who stands out for you?
I like Sanjay Dutt a lot. I think he's got so much talent. Chris Daniels is a hump. I like Chris. I just like calling him a hump. I like Samoa Fatty. He's got a ton of potential. I mean, I've always been hugely high on AJ. But I think Samoa Fatty and Sanjay Dutt, I would definitely get behind those two.
Yeah.
Who else? Daniels, I would have to make a babyface. Or I would have to pull him aside and teach him to be... actually, I have pulled him aside with this. But Daniels wants to be liked. He's just not mean. He's just not evil. He won't portray evil on the screen yet. And if we can get him to do that, he's going to be a tremendous heel. And I think that's the only thing holding him back is stepping over to crossing the line to be a true heel as opposed to just a guy that people boo because they're supposed to. Unless he turns back babyface. But I think there's enough babyfaces, and he has the verbal skills, the verbal dexterity that he should be a heel. He just gotta cross that line and be like, you know what? I'm gonna have to make these people hate me. Because I think that's a lot of problems with the young cruiserweight guys is on some level they want to be liked. You know, I mean, Kid Cash, he didn't care if you hated him, and he made you hate him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That's your job, you know. And if you're not making these people hate you as a heel, you're not doing your job. You're letting everybody down. I don't mean in a bad, you know, that Chris letting everybody down. I'm just saying, but he has the talent and the potential that if he decided to truly make the people hate him, he would be a huge, huge factor.
Do you think it'll be difficult for TNA to retain a lot of these younger guys?
I don't think so at all. I think they all know if they go to New York, they're just going to be opening match because they're all smaller guys. They're all going to be cruiserweight guys that are just, you know, and then Vince is never going to push. He's never, ever going to push the cruiserweight division. He doesn't care about it because that's not what he likes. And bless his heart, he doesn't have to. He's a billionaire. Well, he's a multi-millionaire. And, you know, if he even, like, think about it now. As bad as business is, they just had one of the most successful quarters in the history of the company. So even though the boys aren't getting paid, Vince is making a fortune. You know, that was one of his fourth or fifth biggest quarters of all time. So he's making jackloads of money. So he doesn't have to he doesn't even have to make business better. See, that's what nobody gets. Vince does not have to make business better because he's making a fortune. I mean, he should make it better so the boys get more, but he doesn't have to. So he doesn't have to change what he likes. He can do what he wants because he's always going to keep making money doing what he wants. So why should he change what he wants to do? Yeah. Nobody gets that, but it's a simple psychological portrait. You know, let's say you want to be the quarterback of your team and you're not that good, but it's your team, you know, and you're making all kinds of money. Well, sure, the team would be better if they replaced you, but you know what? It's your team. You want to be it, so screw it. You know, it's your ball.
What will be the legacy of Raven?
What I would truly, truly like is to have another guy say, whoever, this is what I've always thought about. This is what I would like, is to have another guy come along, say, like, you know, on the level of a Rock or a Kurt Angle or somebody like that, and go, you know why I got into wrestling? Because of Raven. That would be the greatest thing for him. I mean, I'm not saying it's ever going to happen, but, you know, it may not. But, yeah, like that kid Jack Evans, the high-flying kid, he like, well, it's cool. He pulled me aside one day and he goes, like, and Teddy Hart told me, he goes, you're his favorite wrestler, which is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Even though we have completely different styles, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So that would be the best legacy that I could think of, is if, you know, some guy just became the next big breakout star and he got in the business said because of me. And that would be, you couldn't ask for anything more than that. When it's all said and done and your pro career is over, what's next for you? I want to work on a radio show. Not work on. I mean, I want to have my own radio show and like a Love Lines with Dr. Drew or something like that, where I can people call in, I give them advice and screw with them. You know? I mean, you know, and honestly, I'd like to be able to do this when I'm 61, like Funk. You know, I don't know if, you know, hopefully my shoulders and my shoulders will hold out, but As long as my shoulders hold up, I mean, I don't want to. If you know how to work, you can do this forever. I mean, because it's a work. That's the funniest thing is, if you have an injury, you work around it. Once you know how to work, you can do so much with so little. Even with today's discerning fans, you just have to know how to do it. And it's sad that most people don't know how to do it, so they have to rely on killing themselves to get reactions when they can do so much less and get so much more. But I would love to do. I'd love to be wrestle. A couple weekends a month. Until I'm 100. If I could. I don't know if I ever could, but I mean, I don't see. It all depends how you take care of yourself. I guess.
Yeah.
And barring no injuries. Knock wood.
TNA Sacrifice is airing live here in New Zealand on Monday. Are you excited at the prospect of teaming with Sabu?
Yeah, absolutely. I love Sabu. Me and him go back a long way, so I mean, I love working with Sabu, and he's always cool. I like to be able to put my imprimatur, if that's the right word, my imprint on a match, and Sabu never has a problem with it. He's like, all right, what do you want to do? And I was like, blah 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 blah. And they're like, hey, what if we do this? I'm like, oh, that's cool, but what if we because I'll always defer to Sabu. I mean, I got tons of respect for him. So if he wants to do something different, but I'll be like, what do you think if we did this instead of that because we need to go here? He's like, not a problem. Like, he's so easy going with it,
Mm-hmm.
Just like, or Sandman, another guy I love working with. Sandman, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, all right, let's do this, and this. Or I'll come in some days and I got nothing. He goes, what about this, and this? I'm like, all right, but let's not do any of that. Let's do this instead. He goes, okay, whatever you want. and that's respect, you know what I mean? Or either that, or they don't feel like, listen to me argue with him for half an hour.
Yeah.
But I like to think it's respect.
What about after Sacrifice? Are there any guys that you've sort of set your sights on that you're willing to give that?
Rhino. Yeah, I want to work with Rhino. Rhino to me is so much better than many people realize because his stuff looks so realistic, but it's so light you can't even feel it. And so Rhino's one of those guys that all he needs is a mouthpiece. He would like that's that's why managers are so valuable. And even though Vince has phased them out, some guys are just never going to be. Their talking is never going to add up to what their work is. And you put like a Jim Mitchell with a Rhino talking for him, off the charts.
Big game for New Zealand tomorrow, the Bledisloe Cup.
Oh, wait, before you even say, I've already made my prediction. New Zealand by 15.
Really?
Yep, absolutely. I'm a huge New Zealand fan.
Good man. All right. Thanks very much for talking, man. It's been absolutely just fascinating listening to you.
Take care, man.